Welcome everybody, this is Eugene Hughes Motorized. Okay, fine folks at bestarc asked me to do a video review of their BTC500XP Plasma Cutter. It'll go up to 5/8 of an inch. It was very well packaged. It arrived, no damage whatsoever there. I'm showing you all the little gizmos on the back. We'll get into more detail on that here. This here also comes with the pigtails where you can hook it up to a CNC computer controlled plasma cutting table. I don't have one, so we're not going to see that in action on there. We're going to do it old school manual style here. This here can go up to 5/8 of an inch on 220 volts as well. It comes with an adapter where you can plug it into 110 volts. Okay, so that's what we've got there for the 220 volts. You're going to want at least a 30 amp breaker there for your 220 volts. Plugs in where your dryer can plug in, right? And there's the adapter that comes with it for 110 volts. It's going to reduce the cutting capacity on it a little bit here. Now, air. You're going to need at least minimum a 15-gallon air compressor for this here. For most hobby jobs, it'll work. 5.5 CFM that this DeWalt unit here has. I'll put some links down below for air compressor if you're interested. And I've got a filter dryer on this. Plasma cutters use a lot of air and they need dry, clean air. That's why I've got the filter on it here. Like I said, your small little 1 or 2 gallon air compressor will not work with a plasma cutter. You need a lot more air. Like I said, this one here is 5.5 CFM of air. The plasma cutter uses like 5.3 CFM of air, but you going in the continuous cut, you're going to burn through that and the compressor will run a lot. If you're going to be doing this in a production shop, you're going to want at least a 20 or a 30 gallon tank on it, and you want 10 plus CFM of air here, okay? All right, so let's get the air hooked up to it. Let's get the working clamp connected. That screws in on the lower right-hand connector on the face of it. Push the connector in, twist it, it locks into place. All right, let's get the gun or the torch hooked up to the control unit there. Unscrew the white cap. That's just a protective cover. Now it's got a key on it where it can only go in one way. I'm indicating it there. You get that lined up with the key inside on the connector. Push it in, and then the outer ring there, turn that in until it gets tight. Just make sure you push it in tight first. And if you're going to be running it to a CNC table, you've got the connectors here. The manual details what the pigtails here that come with it too. Here you've got the one with the 2 wires. That goes for the arc voltage control, and then you have the control signal here, and the wires are labeled as to how they hook up to your CNC controller there, but we're not going to be using it. I don't have a CNC table. So you've got this button here which selects between the 2T and the 4T. The 2T is for normal operation the way I've always seen it here. You press the button, it fires and it begins cutting. 4T, you press the button, it starts cutting, and even if you release the button, it'll continue to cut until you press the button again. That's when it stops cutting here. You've got the selector here for the PA, PT. PA is for the pilot arc. It says PA there. We can adjust to how long we need that. I leave it at about 3. And the post flow here, 5 seconds. You really only need about 3 seconds. That way you get a little blast of air after you finish cutting. Helps cool off your consumables here. You've got this selector button here lets you adjust your air. We're flowing air out. I'm going to turn that off. And that way, when you do that, air will flow out, and you can adjust the regulator here and see how many psi of air is going to be coming out when you're cutting. Push this button here again, and then you're in the cutting mode, and you're ready for normal operation here. And then this button here selects between plate and mesh. That way, if you're going to be cutting mesh, you're going to be cutting something like this. And if you're going to be cutting plate, you're going to be cutting your standard sheet of steel or plate steel here. And this knob here controls the amps of the output. Here, if you're going to be cutting, say, 22 gauge, 20 gauge, you're going to want to run closer to 15 amps. And I typically, if I go 1/8 inch or above, I'll just bump it all the way up here. But you find what works best for you and what gives you the least amount of dross, or the little dregs here that are left over. All right, this machine's made to cut steel, and let's get going here. Here I am cutting some 16 gauge steel. I put a straight edge on it to cut. I measured the cutting area of the tip away from the little guide post, the little piece that goes against the workpiece there. It's about 10 millimeters off from it. I'm just doing some cuts here by hand, whatever. You want to make sure that your cutting area is kind of clean, and of course your straight edge is rather smooth. If you've got any areas that aren't smooth, it'll affect the operation of the torch, and it'll kind of hang up on you a little bit here. Next up, we're cutting some 1/8 inch thick steel that I had welded up, an old project piece of junk that I had laying around. You want to make sure and take your time. You're not going to cut super fast with this here. In order to get a good cut, you need to move slow and steady. If you're doing it jerky, you're going to get some oddball cuts on it here. As you can see, it left a very clean cut, very minimal amount of dross or slag on it here. Now here I am pushing it with some 1/4 inch steel. When you're cutting some of the thicker steel, you definitely have to take your time. That's where you need a good bit of air pressure, and you want to crank the amps up. I went ahead and jacked this up to 50 amps. Possibly could have gotten away with dialing it down a little bit here. My school of thought that I've been taught on these plasma cutters, just turn the air up a little bit higher than you think you need, turn the amps up, and go. You want to get a smooth and even cut on it. You can see where I went back there. We're going to have a little bit of a booger in the cut, and that is my fault. The torch kind of grabbed on my straight edge and left a little bit of dross on the bottom because it was an irregular area there. So you have to master your tool with something like this here. And but look at that. That is a nice clean cut, with the exception of that one area where operator error, me, you can see where it's dark there. I kind of goobered it up by catching the torch there. Okay, so the 50 amp setting on 220 volt operation, this machine is rated to cut up to 14 millimeters or 5/8 of an inch, just a hair under that. And 110 volts at 35 amps max, you can cut right about 10 millimeters, which is 3/8 of an inch, give or take there. All right, so that's it for the bestarc CNC plasma cutter here. I give it 2 thumbs up. Yeah, we got an error display here because I have the air disconnected on it. So, but yeah, definitely a thumbs up. This thing here is a workhorse. It handled 1/4 inch steel, no problem. It goes up to a little bit over 1/2 inch is what the specs say, and I have no reason to suspect that that isn't true. It'll hook up to a CNC cutting table if you're wanting to get high tech on it here. It's a great little plasma cutter. This here cuts better than my older plasma cutter that I got, that I paid a lot more money for back in the day. So I think I've got a new plasma cutter for my shop. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Click that subscribe button down there. Thank you for watching.